Welcome in. It's April Fool's Day. I don't think we'll have any pranks or jokes, but maybe we will. It is April 1st, and we are talking basketball today again. And so we're just going to jump right in. We have kind of more traditional format as opposed to the past previous times, and so we're going to kick it off with Dustin and a memory, and then jump into some basketball from there.
Yeah, so we're talking basketball, and I want to share a memory of one of the greatest, most exciting NBA basketball games that I personally have ever watched. This is from 2016, February 27th, the Golden State Warriors versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, and these are the two powerhouse teams of the West at the time, right? This is the Thunder when you had a lineup of Westbrook, Roberson, Durant, Ibaka, Cantor, and it was a great lineup. This was a team that won 55 games that season versus the greatest team as far as winning goes in NBA history, the Golden State Warriors, who won 73-9 that year. And in this game, Steph Curry absolutely played one of the greatest games he's ever played. He scored 46 points, 36 of them from the 3-point line. He hit 12 threes. And if you've watched the greatest two of them was the three that sent the game into overtime. And then with overtime coming down, Westbrook misses a shot with about 5-6 seconds left. Iguodala rebounds, gets it out to Curry, who slowly dribbles it, at a nice little jog across half court, and from 37 feet or so, knocks it in at the buzzer for his 12th three and to send the Warriors up by 3 points and seal the game. And me watching that at home, I was a Thunder fan, and I so wanted the Thunder to win, but just to see Curry play that well, and he won MVP that year, deserved. I think he was the unanimous MVP vote. And watching that, already knowing how good he was, just kind of cemented that as this is not just the greatest shooter of all time. This is a kid, a player that belongs in the top 10 to ever play the game. Watching him perform that, and so I encourage whoever's listening to go watch YouTube video of this game, February 27th, 2016, Warriors versus Thunder, and watch a real prime MVP Curry take down the Thunder nearly single-handedly. Thoughts from you two on watching highlights from this game, and if you remember it happening.
I watched it live as well, and it was it at the time it was amazing. Like, never seen anything like it. Since then, it's become commonplace to see Curry make those kind of shots. But at the time, it was insane to see him just dominate the way that he did from the 3-point line, from other areas. I think he so I was it second quarter, third quarter, where he also twisted an ankle, and so he played the rest of the game on a twisted ankle and still made all those shots. And I mean, he went to the locker room for 5 minutes and came back with a retaped ankle, but still, to be able to continue to do what he did on a bum ankle was incredible. I've had weak ankles, and I couldn't make those shots before, but I couldn't play any better with those with the bum ankle after that. The other thing I wanted to mention was I think those two teams met in the playoffs as well, the Western Conference Finals, where the Thunder went up 3-1 in that, and the Warriors ended up winning 3 straight games to take that. You said the two powerhouses, absolutely, the two best teams in the Western Conference that year, and the Thunder were 1 game away from making the NBA Finals for 4 straight games, and they couldn't do it, or 3 straight games, I should say. And the Warriors won 3 straight to go to the NBA Finals, where they eventually lost to the Cavaliers. But and then Durant joins the Warriors the very next season. And so it finishes a great Thunder legacy, and like you said, the best team regular season wise in NBA history. And the Warriors have won at least 2 championships since, but one with Durant and one last year. But so yeah, I that was a great game, and the context of it is important to understand as well, I think. So
So I didn't watch it live. It was February, you said February 2016. So I was actually
Mhm.
still I was serving a mission for my church at the time still, but and so I wasn't able to do that. But as someone who is not, I've said this before already on here, the biggest basketball fan, I can appreciate talent and I can appreciate good competition and appreciate good game. And this is exactly what that was. When I went back and watched the game and watched the highlights and watched him and I was gonna say you don't even have to be a basketball guru to know that Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time. He's amazing. I love watching him, and I'm a Steph Curry fan. He's also just off the court from what I've seen. He's a really humble guy, and I'm a fan of him. And I think, yeah, I think as you said, Scott, it's kind of become commonplace to see him play this way and do this and do that. But it's still, for me, every time I see him do it, it's still just as exciting. And so I really love that game. I love Steph Curry. He is um, the one of the best players in the league currently, and one of the best players all time, I think.
It's fun to be able to relive what's one of the greatest, last second buzzer beater shots, to win that game, which is what that was. And it's fun to see that. But if you watch a YouTube clip of top 10 buzzer beaters, that shot's on it.
yeah. Yep. Great. Good memory. So we're going to jump into college basketball now, but before we jump into men's, let's talk about the women's NCAA basketball tournament. The national championship game is set. We're going to back up a little bit from there, but the Final Four was between LSU and Virginia Tech, and on the other side, Iowa against South Carolina. Now, it's important to understand that South Carolina had a perfect season until last night. They did not lose a game, and they've done that before. This is South Carolina is becoming the new UConn for women's college basketball, even though UConn is still as good as they've always been too. But South Carolina had a perfect season. They did not lose a game until last night, where Iowa and Caitlin Clark came in and beat South Carolina to go to the national championship game. They'll play LSU for that national championship game. And I just want to look at Caitlin Clark's stat lines. In the tournament so far, she's had the first round was 26 points and 12 assists. Second round, 22 points, 12 assists. Sweet 16, 31 points, 8 assists. The Louisville game in the Elite Eight, she became the first women's player to have a 40-point triple-double. She had 41 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. Took along with just 3 steals too. And then last night she matched it with 41 points and 8 assists. She won the Player of the Year, and is absolutely incredible. I haven't seen I've seen some highlights for Caitlin Clark, and she reminded me of Steph Curry. Honestly, that's who I was thinking of as she nailed these shots from deep, and these players that are guarding her just like throw up their hands like I can't do any better than that. And she makes these shots, and it's fun to watch a player of her caliber dominate and send this team into the national championship game. So, thoughts on NCAA women's?
You can go first, Dustin.
Yeah, what's amazing is with her performance, the amount of assists that she also gets along with the points, where the offense goes completely through Clark. It is either she's going to score or she's going to make the offense move in order to get somebody else to score. And it's really talented watching basketball, men's, women's, whatever it is, when you see a player have such an offensive control of the game. And I'm really excited to see where her career progresses. She's putting up the type of performances that makes you think of, Brianna Stewart, Candace Parker, great WNBA players like that. And I'm excited to see where she goes from here. But for now, it's enjoyable to see a player who is so offensively talented.
I don't have a whole lot more to add, but I guess what I did want to say was I'm excited to see the championship. LSU is a great team, and it's no secret that I'm a Utah fan, and Utah women's basketball is really good, usually really good, and they played LSU. LSU beat them, and so I guess I'm excited to see what Caitlin can do against this LSU team, who I think is deserving to where they are at. And I think it's also important to remember, and I fall into the same trap, to remember that women's sports can be just as exciting. It really can be, and they are just as talented, if not more talented in some aspects, in some sports. And so I think it's important that we watch that stuff the way it's meant to be watched, just as much.
Yep. Thank you for that. Anything else on women's tournament? No. Okay. Let's move on to the men's tournament. We'll spend a little bit more time here. The Final Four is set, and we've got a 4, 2 5s, and a 9. Anyone have that combination? This is the first Final Four ever that no top 3 seeds have been in it. That means that the top 12 teams in the tournament field didn't make it to the none of the top 12 teams made it to the Final Four, and only one of the top 16 teams made it to the Final Four. And so I thought a good way to do this would be to go region by region and talk about some of the games or the best things that came out of those regions, or thoughts that we can access from there. And so and then talk finally about the Final Four, and some of the predictions and things like that. So let's start with the top left.
South region, right?
The South region, yes. So some of the upsets that were here, that we want to talk about in the very first round. We've talked about some of these, so we don't have to revisit them, but we had a 15 over a 2, Princeton beating Arizona. We had a 13 over a 4, Furman over Virginia. And then in the second round, Princeton continued their Cinderella run. 15 beat the 7, Princeton over Missouri, to send Princeton to the Sweet 16. We also had Creighton upset Baylor, the 6 over the 3. In the Sweet 16 round, top seed Alabama got out physicaled and outbeat by San Diego State. And so those were the upsets in that top round, in that first round. Any thoughts? I do have some thoughts, or the takeaway for me, but I want to hand it over to either one of you for what you want to talk about from this particular region.
I think that congrats to Princeton for making that Cinderella run, getting to Sweet 16. That was fun and exciting to see it. A 15 seed, or a seed just as high as they are, to do so well and to get so far. And then also, I watched the entire Alabama San Diego State game, and I was hoping the entire time for a San Diego State win. And San Diego State has some pretty big players. They have some big players, very physical, but really fun to watch. And Alabama, they've got their stars on their team, and San Diego State, I thought, played really well coached, and it was just fun, really fun game to watch. And San Diego State is a dangerous team.
Yeah, I agree with San Diego State being dangerous, and we're gonna see what happens tonight with the games, but and I'm sure we'll go through a Final Four prediction, but
Yeah.
I expect San Diego State to play at the level that they're going to keep playing, and I've seen clips from their coach who have said, hey, we're dangerous right now, and I don't see it. The coach is saying, I don't see a team that can beat us. I haven't seen it. I don't see any team in this field that can beat us, and that's the way I see it with them. They're really good. I think there might be one team on the other side that can beat them. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. The thought that I had about this particular region, you have these blue bloods, the top 4 seeds, Alabama, Arizona, Baylor, and Virginia, all bow out, all of them in the Sweet 16 or before, 2 in the first round, and it made me think in this region in particular that a lot of these players that play for those 4 teams are going to be one and dones. Right? Brandon Miller for Alabama just announced that he's going to the NBA draft. He's going to be a top 5 pick. And some of these, I wonder if the urgency for these schools, these blue bloods, these players is not good at the same level, because these guys, these stars playing for these blue blood schools are, they lose that game. It's okay. They're going to play somewhere next year. They're having sight set on their $1 million checks that they're going to get the next year. Schools like Princeton, even Creighton, even San Diego State. Some of these players, they lose that game. They're never. Some of these seniors, they're not going to play at that competitive level ever again. They're going to play pickup games. They're entering the workforce, just like the rest of us that are graduate college. And the urgency is there. It's literally do or die for them. They will never play basketball at that level again. And I wonder if we're finally seeing this tournament come to the level where the level of urgency is more important than the level of blue blood. And so I really enjoyed seeing that. And, like I said, Brandon Miller, he's going to make $20 million next year. He's going to be a top 5 pick. The guys that beat him at San Diego State, none of them are going to go to the NBA next year, or maybe 1 or 2. One of them will eventually, but not at the same level. 2nd round pick, maybe, right? So that's kind of what I was thinking about that region.
I have some thoughts that go along with that might work better as we talk about some other regions. So let's maybe move over to the east or the next region that we can continue this conversation. I think I have some good thoughts there.
Okay, let's go down to I can't
East.
The east. Yeah, thank you.
The
some of the upsets we had here, obviously the second ever 16-1. We had Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue in the first round. Excuse me, I'm struggling with something here. We also had Florida Atlantic beat Memphis. That's a 9-8. It's not a big one, but it's still technically an upset. In the second round, we had Michigan State upset Marquette, 7-2. And then in the Sweet 16, we had Florida Atlantic again continue their run by beating Tennessee, the top defensive team in the country. And then in the Elite 8, Florida Atlantic continued, and they beat Kansas State to go to the Final Four. So Florida Atlantic in the Final Four. I'm not sure anyone outside of trying to remember where Florida Atlantic's located, but outside of that city picked that. But at the same time, and this is a thought I had, and then I'll swing it over to you guys. Florida Atlantic lost 3 games this year, the entire year. The reason that they kind of flew under the radar is because of the division they played in. They're the only representative in the tournament in their division, and they lost 3 games in that division to 3 teams that are not in the field. But still, they lose 3 games. At the end of the Elite 8 game, the Kansas State coach, Tang, I can't remember his first name, but Tang, after spending time with his Kansas State team and commiserating and grieving about losing that game, he walks over to the Florida Atlantic locker room, and he walks in and he says, "You guys, we played our best game and you beat us. It says no one can beat you. You go win that tournament. And the type of sportsmanship that you don't see a whole lot of a head coach of a team that just lost in the Elite Eight that goes over to the other locker room and he says, I'm proud of you guys, that you guys beat us at our best game, and I think you guys can win, and I'm cheering for you the whole way. You don't see that kind of sportsmanship a whole lot from that kind of team. And I'm a Florida Atlantic fan, and like you said, Dustin, about San Diego State, I think Florida Atlantic can win their next 2 games. I think they can win the national championship. Will they do that? I don't know, but they can. And so it's tonight's game is going to be fun between those 2 teams. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, watching some of the FAU games, like what I said about San Diego State earlier, there are some big guys, they're physical. They're, FAU, they didn't have that from what I could see. They're smaller, but they're fast, they're agile. But what I noticed, at least for me, is the coaching was really easy to see. And that was really fun to watch. FAU has been a fun team to watch, exciting, and they are really good. But I think they're also going to meet their match with San Diego State. But we'll see what happens. But it should be a good game. But that was fun to watch. FAU, and with what you're saying, Scott, with Kansas State going over there, unfortunately, we don't see that kind of sportsmanship in like any sport anymore today, and that's really sad. And I'm glad to hear that happened. Because sometimes you just gotta admit, the other team's good. They deserve the credit. So I like to hear that story. But FAU is fun to watch.
Yeah, with FAU, basketball strategy in the current era, especially at the professional level, is focused on pace and space. How fast can you play? And then space in order to stretch the defense. FAU, I think, is doing that better than any other team we've watched. They are really good at spacing out the other team's defense, and they like to move fast. They shoot early in the shot clock, and they're fast. They get a lot of fast break points and a lot of fast break 3-pointers, and they're hitting that strategy that at the professional level does really well, and you don't see it so much at the college level. They play slower, but FAU is doing well. But in this region, talking about FDU, Scott, you mentioned, these are kids that they're going to go enter the workforce. They're not going to go play professional. And Charles Barkley had some comments on that. He says, no matter where you go, 30 years from now, if you meet up with your buddy that you played college, you can say, hey, do you remember when we did that? Do you remember when we took down the number 1 seed, Purdue? That's something that nobody can ever take away from you. And FAU says, hey, can you remember that when we went to the Final Four? Us, people nobody's ever heard of, when we took down Tennessee and when we took down Kansas State, and we have the opportunity to take down San Diego State and maybe even either Miami or UConn. That's a memory that's going to stay with them and their fans forever. Taking that a little bit further, we kind of talked a little bit in preparation for this call about, this is such a fun and exciting tournament. Is there anything in other sports that can mirror, like college football? In college football, you look at bowl games. Usually it's blue bloods bowl games all the way. But here's a little pop quiz. Do you remember, either of you? Oh, it's probably 10 to 15 years ago. Division II team took down Michigan at the Big House. Do you guys remember that team's name? Who was it?
Appalachian State. Yeah.
So here we are 15 years later, and you remember that. And and we always will remember UMBC, and we'll remember FDU, and that's the beauty of college basketball. And it happens so rarely in college football when a tiny team, Division II or small Division I, takes down a big blue blood. And I love to see that happen here, and I wish it happened in other sports more.
Yeah, I thanks for that. Okay, moving over to the top right, if I can get back to my screen. Wherever it went.
Midwest.
Oh boy, one of you may have to take over here. I don't remember where I was.
In the Midwest, I can take over here.
Yeah.
This had a lot of teams. You know, it was the Blue Bloods that went it out, with the exception of Pittsburgh, right? Who was a play in a first four that made it, that took down Iowa State, and then you had Miami take down Houston.
Yeah. This was a region. I thought it was a fairly weak region. For the very beginning, I thought it was. I mean, you have Houston, who has they're obvious. They were a top number one team for a majority of the year, but in every game that they played, their offense sometimes disappears, and sometimes it'll be at the wrong time. They're a great defensive team, but their offense will disappear every now and then. Texas just went through a coaching change halfway through the year when Chris Beard, I can't exactly remember if one of you do, why he was fired, but it had something to do with a legal situation. And so they have a new coach that is trying to step in. Xavier is the exact opposite of Houston, where their defense will disappear every now and then. Their offense is always there. And so I was like, and then Indiana is inconsistent all year. Those are the top four seeds in that division. And I was like, I don't know who can come out of that. Miami was the one that stepped up and could. And so that that was a region where I thought was wide open from the very beginning. And Miami was the one that came out of it. And so, and I think their kid in the Elite Eight last week, he had a ridiculous game against Texas where he threw up, what it was, at 30 something points and made like 8 3-pointers in the game, and incredible performance to beat Texas and to come out of that division or that region.
Yeah, that game, Miami, Texas, was fun to watch. And I missed some of it because Texas took a huge lead, 12, 15-point lead in the start of the second half. And I was kind of like, oh, man, hoping for Miami won. And so I stopped watching. And then, a few minutes later, I got kind of like a 5-minute alert on my phone saying, hey, Miami's closing in. I'm like, oh, great. So I turned it back on and watched Miami complete the comeback. It was like a 12-point comeback to win. That was really exciting to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to this one, honestly. I do think that the Miami win over Indiana was also was pretty significant. I know it's a 5 seed and a 4 seed, but Indiana is a good team historically. They usually are, and so that one was good. But of course, the Miami over Houston was the biggest one there. And then they continued it, Miami over Texas.
Yeah. Okay, moving down to the last region. It went chalk for the first round, right? 1 through 8, all won the first round, and then we had the big upset, Arkansas upsetting Kansas for that Sweet 16 berth, and then it went chalk the rest of the way until until Gonzaga upset UCLA. That's a 3-over-2. Wasn't exactly the biggest upset, and then UConn trounced their way through that region. I think they pretty much blew out all 4 teams that they played in that region, including Gonzaga. They won by like 35. That was incredible to see UConn play at the level that they've been playing so far, and you kind of have to wonder if anyone can match up against UConn in this tournament, or if they're just going to trounce their way through all 6 games. But yeah, that I do have one thought, but let's move it to you guys.
I think just real quick, my only thought, and it's more of a clarification, but UConn is the only team in this Final Four who's actually won a championship before. Is that correct?
They're the only ones who have been into a Final Four before.
Oh,
Right.
okay. So no team has ever won a championship then, right?
Other than UConn.
No, UConn, this would be their 4th. If they win, it's their 4th in the last 20 years.
Okay,
They've won 3 in the last, since like 2004. I think they won a couple, and then they won again in 2012.
Okay, that's
what I was saying, Cody, was that the other 3 teams haven't even been to a Final Four before. So
okay, gotcha. Yeah, in one of my brackets, I had UConn going to the championship and then being beat by someone, and so I'm not really surprised that UConn is this far. It's exciting to watch them play this way, and they are really good, but I'm not surprised.
What surprises me about UConn, and Scott, you mentioned it, is every game they've won by at 15 points minimum. I think their closest game was like 15 points, and that might have been, against St. Mary's or something, where then they get to Arkansas, who showed how good they were against Kansas, and it was men against boys. And then again with Gonzaga, who we see how good they are with, especially with Drew Timme, who's dropping 30 points a night. And again, men against boys. And it's crazy to see these teams that you've seen do really good, the way Gonzaga beat UCLA, and then they look so lost out there against UConn. And so it's incredible to see 20, 30-point victories from a team who's not the number one overall seed and wasn't the, I don't think they're on like a top 5 most picked teams to win the championship either.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, let's predict these final 3 games. So we got San Diego State versus Florida Atlantic. Let me throw my hat in right now. I think Florida Atlantic wins that game. And the reason that I think that is because you can say San Diego State has a great defensive team. Florida Atlantic already beat the best defensive team in the country in this tournament. They already beat Tennessee. I think Florida Atlantic beats San Diego State and goes to the national championship game. What about you guys?
I'll pitch in next. I'm going opposite of you. I think it's San Diego State here. I think that Florida Atlantica is coming in with a lot of momentum. They're really excited. They're doing well. You made your point already about their defense playing against good defenses, but I think San Diego State is going to find a way to just out physical them. I think they're going to find a way to go match up against them. It won't be an easy game though for them. They're going to play their butts off, probably more against any other team, but San Diego State's going to win that in advance.
Yeah, I think the magic number is 60 points. If FAU can break 60 points, I think they can do it. And San Diego State is really good at holding teams to less than that. And my prediction is San Diego State, that their defense is going to be able to come through and they're going to frustrate FAU enough to pull it out. Although I think it'll be very exciting, very close.
All right. The other side, I think this is another double-digit victory for UConn. I don't think Miami can hang with UConn, so I'm going UConn.
I was going to say that I think this is an easy one. I think UConn is going to wipe the floor with Miami. Maybe I'm being too harsh about it, but yeah, kind of similar to what you're saying. I think it's going to be an easy one for them, and they'll head to the final or to the championship.
Yeah, I have to agree. This is a UConn victory, and I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be another double-digit victory. And I'd love to be flying the wall this week in Miami practice locker rooms, trying to say, okay, how do we slow this team down that's been shooting 50% from 3 and putting up 90 points a game? How do we drop that 90 points down to 70 points? And that's I'm sure that coach, Miami's coach, has not been sleeping well this week.
Yeah. All right. National.
By the way, Miami coach took George Mason to the Final Four back in 2003. It's the same guy.
Jim Larrañaga. Yeah. All right. National championship game. For me, it's UConn and Florida Atlantic, and the Cinderella run ends there. UConn is going to win that game. So for you guys, it's UConn against San Diego State.
So, and that's what I was thinking. I think it's going to be San Diego State, UConn, and I'm predicting a San Diego State win. I think San Diego State is going to upset UConn, and it's going to be an upset in that way because UConn is going to be favored. I think, I honestly, I just don't think San Diego State can be stopped. I think that win over Alabama just pumped them full of adrenaline, and they're go it and win it all.
Good. Well, we got 3 different choices. I'm choosing UConn. They've been the best team in the tournament. And the teams that they've beat this tournament have been strong teams. and it's going to continue. They're Miami's strong team, San Diego State's a strong team. UConn wins. I don't think it's going to be quite the blowout, but still probably 10 points.
Yep. Okay. In the last minute, one question and very simple answer. Has this been the best tournament in recent memory? And I'm saying yes, because of the chaos and the excitement that it has brought back to college basketball.
One word, absolutely.
I gotta say no, but it's top 5. There's been a lot of really, really exciting ones in recent past. Yeah. Top 5.
I think just real quick, I want to say it's really good for the sport. It's really good for the sport.
Yeah. All right. Next week we're meeting, and I think Cody, it is your show next week. It's the first part of your show, and so we'll have to send you. We'll have to get ready. Cody, send us what you want to talk about. So that is what we'll do next week.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Bye.